Welcome, this is Josh Rees with Mile High Church in Lakewood, Colorado. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. For more information about our church, please visit our website, milehighchurch.org.
Thank you. What a joy it is to celebrate with you today. We have a program that we began last week. It's our annual Adventure and Prosperity series, and it was a joy to introduce our theme to you. Last week, it's got a beautiful graphic with it. It's called The Abundant Universe, because we believe in this teaching, absolutely, that the nature of our universe is abundance, that there is more than enough. In that song that Tom wrote and sang for us at the beginning of the service, that there's always more than enough of the good and the resources, the energy that we desire, but that we have somehow fallen into beliefs that there isn't enough. Beliefs in scarcity, or as one author put it, we live in scarcity. We are challenged to remind ourselves and live from an awareness of the organic truth of our being, because our lives haven't always played themselves out in a way that we can say, oh, there's plenty, because we've been taught things that make us believe that there's not plenty, because we've grown up in a culture and a family and people who showed us at times that we needed to be more interested in lack and limitation than the abundant nature of the universe. And when we begin to study these principles and practice them and live them out, one of the greatest challenges we start to face is that there's abundance. There's abundance that we can live from, that we're steeping in at all times, and that is the true nature of us. And I've come to see how each one of us has a place in our life where abundance tends to flow. We usually have at least one place where for some reason, and it's all those reasons I said earlier, it's just easy. Maybe it's easy for us to find friends. Maybe it's easy for us to be physically healthy. Maybe it's easy for us to manifest money and job opportunities and to do the things we want to do, adventure, whatever it is. We just easily and effortlessly have some area of our life that flows. And that we all also have other areas of our life where maybe it's more challenging, where abundance isn't so easy to come by, where we struggle with lack and limitation and we don't quite understand why. And in both cases, the reality and the principles are the same. That at some level we've accepted ease and grace in this area and struggle and strife in this area. And that the secret is to begin to understand the nature of abundance exists everywhere, and that any time we can shift our thinking, shift our awareness, shift our energy, and experience a difference. Sometimes it can be that area that just flowed so greatly suddenly isn't flowing so well, or that area that was challenged is now suddenly in the flow. And it all has to do with us. Contrary to popular opinion, it doesn't have to do with the economy. It doesn't have to do with God's love and support and rewards and not rewards. It doesn't have to do with anything or anyone out there. It has all to do with here for each one of us. And the minute we begin to accept that and take full responsibility and accountability for the flow of good in our lives and the willingness to steep in abundance, we begin to see change. So we introduced this theme last week. We introduced the first building block of abundance that our Adventure and Prosperity team came together and created, and it was gratitude, thanksgiving, thankfulness, being willing to be grateful, have a grateful heart. I also introduced our Adventure and Prosperity team last week to you all. They were here, most of them in the sanctuary, and at the 10 o'clock service, I somehow left out our beloved Karen Thomas, who's our event director here at Mile High Church, who's a key member of our team, and I left her name off, and I felt so horrible. So Karen Thomas, I'm sorry I left you off. Thank you for your service to our wonderful Adventure and Prosperity team and to our church. You are blessed. Thank you, Karen. Yes. So we talked about the grateful heart, and today we're stepping into courage. We're stepping into abundant courage, releasing fear to attract more good. I wrote the book that I wrote because I was in a book workshop, and they challenged us to consider writing a book about a topic that we felt passionate about and that we could imagine if we could bring this concept to life that it could improve people's lives. And I will tell you the truth that if I were like Curly in that movie and say the one thing that people could do to change their lives, if we could just imagine this with me, if we could eradicate fear on this planet. Just feel into that for a moment. If we could just stop being afraid. Stop being afraid of what's going to happen, of the unknown future. Stop being afraid of failure. Stop being afraid of each other, of people who are different than us, who have a different belief system than us, who live in a different country, who have different practices than us, who make different choices than us, who are in a different political party than us. If we could just stop being so afraid of each other and afraid of life and afraid of money and afraid of our bodies and afraid of growing older, what would our lives be like? To surrender into fearless living. That's what I envisioned. And so I set out to write a book that's a very basic, easy book to read, just challenging us to get beyond fear. And as we danced with this theme, as our team danced with it, we realized that fear in abundance is a huge challenge. Fear in life is a huge challenge. I was sharing with Reverend Zamira last week, and Todd, our wonderful facilities director, he did so well last week sharing here on this stage. I was sharing with them outside afterwards that Jerry Seinfeld, the great comedian, has this line in one of his comedy acts where he talks about how a survey says that the number one fear humans have is public speaking. And the number two fear that humans have is death. So Jerry suggests that if we're ever at a funeral, we would much prefer to be the person in the coffin than the one giving the eulogy. It's kind of twisted, isn't it? But that's just how fear works. Fear is irrational. Fear is strange. Fear is not our natural way. Now, certainly fear has its place. Fear serves and supports us. It supported humans who had to live out in the wild, and if a raging animal was coming their way, fear takes over, and it lobs a whole bunch of chemicals into our system and allows us to have the energy to run as fast as we can from that thing that we fear. Now, I don't know about you, but it has not ever happened to me in this lifetime that I have faced a raging tiger in my life. But sometimes I think we live like that every day. We live in what they call fight or flight, and we are lobbing those chemicals of that energy into our system, into our bodies constantly, and that creates stress in our body system. It creates stress in our emotions. It creates stress in our spiritual nature, because our spiritual nature knows and understands that at the core, whatever condition or circumstances you're facing right now that may be scaring you, whatever condition or circumstance you may face ever, you have the wherewithal to handle it. You can actually get through it magnificently and grow and learn and rise up to meet it and greet it with great grace and comfort. But only if we're willing to let go of fear. Only if we're willing to be fearless in moving forward. And so fear contracts us. It makes us small. It makes us little. It takes us into our small mind. It causes this activity in our body that doesn't serve us. And then courage expands us. Courage allows us to walk forward into life with this great sense of possibility. We believe in the law of attraction here. Which would you rather have? Fear attracts more to be afraid of. Courage attracts more to step forward and rise up to. And so we get to choose powerfully about where we are with fear. I'm a big fan of the songwriter and singer Melissa Etheridge. My heart goes out to her today because in this past year, she lost her 20-year-old son. He died by suicide. And she's a beautiful artist, and I'm sure this is her first Mother's Day without him. And she has a lyric in a song that I just love and that is pertinent to where we stand today and represents the challenge that I offer to us today. She says, "Mothers, tell your children, be quick, you must be strong. Life is full of wonder. Love is never wrong. Remember what they taught you, how much of it was fear. Refuse to hand it down. The legacy stops here." Yeah, beautiful. That's my challenge today. In terms of living abundantly, in terms of making myself available to all of the good that there is in this universe, am I willing for the legacy of fear to stop here, to stop with me, to stop in how I think and how I live and how I speak and how I act and how I take my life forward and walk forward through the opportunities that show up in my world. And so I'm bringing us today opportunities to step forward courageously and powerfully, that courage is a building block to great abundance. But we have work to do to get there. The great Martin Luther King Jr. says to us, we must constantly build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear. Because the world, by and large, has bought into fear and sells fear so well. But we don't have to buy it. We can build up these inner dikes of courage to stand in and move forward from. So I have a few of them, 3 today. Courage, first of all, to look right at the fear. Sometimes when we find ourselves in fear, we want to look away, we want to pretend it's not there. I will continue to teach, as long as I get to, that our teaching, the science of mind and spirit, is not a teaching of denial. It's not a teaching that says we see a circumstance we don't like and we just look away and pretend it's not there. Oh, I don't see that, it's not there. It's not that at all. I believe that what it really is that I have the courage to look right at that situation, right at that feeling or emotion, right at that thought, right at that pattern, right at that fear, and look right at it, see it, own it, claim it, and see right through it to the truth that is behind it. Yes, I feel afraid, and yes, there is fear, and yes, fear is right here present. I'm feeling afraid, and to see right through it to the truth and to use the tools that we have here to support ourselves in doing that, to understand that it is okay to be afraid, especially when we're stretching or when we're moving forward or when something happens that we didn't expect. We might feel fear, but we then continue to feel that fear and move forward through our life. And the tools that we use can include the following. The tools can include, being willing to feel the fear and do it anyway. To feel the fear and do it anyway. That's a great book title, isn't it? Someone already wrote that book, though. But how many times have we had to do that? To see right through the fear and do it anyway. Ernest Holmes says to us in his book, This Thing Called You, my favorite book he wrote, whatever you identify yourself with, you will become like. Whatever you resist until you make it a reality, you will also become like. Therefore, resist not evil, and it will flee from you. Don't fight your fears. See through them. There is nothing in God's world to be afraid of. So feeling the fear and doing it anyway. How many times have we had to do that? We probably had to do that on our very first day of school, the first day on a job, the first date, the first time we decided to do something regarding our health and well-being, the first time we stepped out to do something that we had never done before. We do this all the time. We feel the fear and we do it anyway. We say, I feel my fear, but what I want to do and accomplish is on the other side of the fear, so I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to step forward and do it anyway. Another tool is to use affirmations or supportive thoughts. I share in the book about how when I moved to Southern California in 1991, when I left here, that the first thing that I encountered that I was so afraid of were earthquakes. I was so scared of those earthquakes. And fear began to rule my life. Everywhere I went, I was afraid of earthquakes. And I created an affirmation. I did some other things that I share about, but I created an affirmation that I continue to use to this day because I decided that my consciousness is not big enough to control the earth. But I can control where I am when the earth decides to shake. And so my affirmation goes like this: I'm always in the right place at the right time to ensure my total safety. And whenever I feel afraid of the earth or something going on, of my safety, I affirm that. And I listen and feel my guidance as it says, go down that road, go that direction, walk that way. I use that affirmation to help me be with my fear, see it, but then affirm what's the truth that I want to experience. Who do I want to be in the midst of this fear? So affirming, finding a word that works, finding a phrase that works, that we can say in the midst of our fear. In my book, I suggest also a tool of researching stories of people who've been through what we're afraid of right now. Afraid of stepping into a new love relationship? Well, go out and read stories about people who've done that and had great success. Afraid to take that big career risk? Go read stories about people who've had the courage to do what you're afraid to do, and let their stories inspire and uplift. And anytime fear starts to come on board, be willing to read a story or research or find someone who's done what we've done. Because I guarantee with every fear we have, there's some other human in history who's had that same fear as us and has been able to transcend it and walk forward. And to be able to take that fear into my spiritual practice, to walk with the divine and take that fear and go into my practice and literally say to my innermost self, I'm feeling so afraid. And breathe and listen to the wisdom and the comfort and the courage and the encouragement of my own inner self. This is how we allow ourselves to have the courage to see our fear and see past it. That's so important, such important tools. The next one is the courage to triumph through victimhood. Here's the reality. I know that just about every human being I've ever known has been victimized in some way. Some of us have been through abuse, neglect, have been betrayed, have been taken advantage of in horrific ways, in the ways that humans tend to do that, unfortunately, still on this planet. And whenever we're victimized like that, or we feel victimized like that, we have a choice to stay in that sense of victimhood and allow it to become our identity, or to find ways to step out of it. Carolyn Mays used to talk about how we have to pay attention to how we feel compelled to introduce ourselves to each other. And she spent a lot of times talking about, do we go up to people, new people we meet, and say to them, hi, my name's Michelle. I was raised in an abusive household. How are you today? You know, just watching how that desire to bring up to people how our pain and our suffering, she talks about leading with our pain. And so if our identity is tied up in the painful past, in the hurtful past, in what we've been through, and we haven't learned to process and heal it enough so that it is a part of who we are, but it becomes a part of our triumphant experience, then we're stuck. We're stuck in victimhood, in that low energy stuff. We're stuck in the idea that we're broken. We're stuck in the idea that we're damaged, that we're not good enough, that we're not lovable enough, and maybe we never will be. That's what's staying lodged and angst and rooted in our victimization will cause us to believe about ourselves because of what happened to us. And yet, I have witnessed over these many blessed years of practitionership and ministership, people who've said, no, I know that's what I've experienced, but I'm going to allow what I've experienced to grow me and raise me up and allow me to use this experience to be a beneficial presence in the world and step out of my victimhood. And to people who make that choice, their lives shift forever. And I share in my book the number one story that I can share about because I have witnessed it firsthand. I am Michelle Medrano. I was raised in an abusive household. And it was that my parents found themselves with this newborn baby here, me, at the age of 18 years old. They were young, they were inexperienced, they both had challenging backgrounds in some ways, low self-esteem, and my father was taught about alcohol and rage in his family, and so my father was a physical rager, and he regularly beat my mother from the moment they came together. Even one time while I was still in her belly, he beat her. And so I grew up watching this violence in my household and watching my mother struggle with it, being absolutely victimized by my father on a regular basis. And watched her struggle with how to get beyond it, going to the priests in our church, going to friends and doing anything she could think of. And she was so young, she didn't have a career, she didn't have a job for a long time. He was very controlling. She was stuck. And by the time she was 23, she had 3 children and was raising us 3 children to the best of her ability, all the while being distracted by not knowing exactly when my father was going to be the happy version of himself or the violent version of himself. And I watched my mother in this struggle. And eventually, when I was 10 years old, she had the courage to request a separation from him. And they separated, and I think they both went to counseling, and they did their best to try to improve themselves, and it was a little scary and challenging. And then they came back together for a few years, and it just didn't get better. So when I was 14, they finally divorced. But that was hard too, because my mother had not had a career at all. So she had to take her 3 children out of this comfortable lifestyle that we'd been living in, and we moved on, and she had to find work. She became a real estate agent here in Denver. She became a mortgage lender here in Denver. And eventually, she opened her own business that was called Positive Imagery, where she taught people through the use of guided imagery and through counseling and support to rise above their own challenges, to rise above their own limitations into greater living. And I watched my mother blossom. How did she do this? She got help. She got support. She went to workshops. She came to this church. She took classes. She did things in her life to improve herself when she could have spent her entire life feeling as though she were the victim of my father. I watched firsthand as she made choice after choice, day after day, to be and become something different. So I know what I'm talking about. If we are feeling victimized by life or by someone in our life, there is a way out. And it has to do with having the courage to step up and step forward and say, I choose something different. I choose something different. I choose a different life. And it makes all the difference to us when we do that. For me, her example has lifted me so powerfully and caused me to understand that I never have to be a victim of anything. I can always choose to be a victor. And I invite us to have that courage today. And lastly, the courage to follow our dreams. The more we let loose of fear and allow fear to dissipate, the more we start to feel this part of us that dreams awfully big. It has dreams of the way we would love to live our life, of the life we would love, of the people we'd love to live it with, and the relationships we'd love to have, and the work we'd love to do, and the way we'd love to make a difference and contribute to life. And those dreams can be huge and big and bold. And we all have mentors who can support us along the journey, and likely we all have tormentors. People who don't believe in us. People who say, oh, that dream is too big. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. That seems like a big risk. And a lot of times it's from a voice of love, but sometimes it's just someone projecting onto us that they themselves are afraid to dream big, and so they feel the need to cause us not to dream big. And our culture right now, for some reason, we believe we all actually have a right to criticize and comment on people's life and choices and what they choose to be and do and how they choose to live. And we just don't. Social media in some ways has given us some permission that makes us think we actually have a right to do that. And so we might be tempted to squelch other people's dreams, or as we share on Facebook this new reality and people go, why the heck would you want to do that? That's so stupid. What are you thinking? That sort of thing. And so it takes great courage at times to be willing to be someone who lives out our dreams and lets go of that fear. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, says to us, there is still another fear which is at least as great as the fear of death, and that's the fear of life. The fear of people, the fears which come from sensitiveness. In many ways, this is the worst fear we have. I do not know if there is any way of weighing and measuring it as against other fears, but I cannot help thinking there is no fear greater than the fear of life. So when we shine and follow our heart, what will people think? What will my mother think? What will my father think? What will my partner think? What will my kids think? When we choose to shine and go out fearlessly into the life we would love to live, it takes great courage. And therefore, I encourage us to encourage and love and lift up and celebrate anyone who chooses to do this. Because I know for myself that following that inner voice at times has been so difficult, but I knew that I had to. Whether it was to be in ministry or to come back here to Mile High Church or to make many of the choices that I've made in my life. And when I followed that voice, it has made all the difference because it's been the right choice for me. Confucius says to know what is right and not do it is the worst cowardice. So I applaud people who make big choices to change their life. And instead of telling you another story about that, I'm going to bring someone up who has a choice they're making right now to make a courageous, bold decision in their life to follow their dream and follow their heart. And he's going to tell you about it. So please welcome Reverend Masando Hiroka.
Ooh, Michelle is on fire today, huh? Yeah, it is always a tremendous honor to follow that inner voice, right? And to feel it in the midst of all of the doubt and the fear that may come up when we start to listen to and connect with that still small voice within. It's an adventure that I've been on for a little bit here, and recently it has been coming up bigly in my life. This thing about ministry is a trip. I think about the courage that it took for Dr. Michelle to, start here at Mile High, then to go venture forth and do her ministry in Phoenix, and then to get the call from Dr. Roger out of the blue to come back and to say yes to that. I got to visit Josh in Seal Beach, and I got to tell you, he had a pretty sweet setup out there. He lived walking distance to the beach and the local pub and his church, all from his house. And yet he answered the call to come and serve here, which I can't imagine was an easy one. And I find myself in a very similar position, as I was not looking for anything else. Colorado is my home. My friends, my family, they're all here. Mile High Church was the first church I ever stepped into. So this has been a dream. But I recently had a call to serve at a church in Portland, and after many weeks of discernment and prayer and wrestling and having all my fears in my face about it, because this opportunity, I knew it was important because it terrified me. I've finally said yes. So I have, thank you. It's bittersweet news, of course, but long story short, I've accepted a position as an associate minister, as the associate minister at New Thought Center for Spiritual Living in Lake Oswego, Oregon, serving with with a minister you all may know who has been my mentor for many years, Reverend Shannon O'Hurley. So yeah, it has been the greatest honor to serve here these past 3 years, which felt like they went by really quickly and very slowly at the same time. It feels like I've been through 10 to 20 years of experience, especially in this past year. And I just have so much gratitude for Dr. Michelle, for Reverend Josh, for their mentorship. It's amazing to have ministers that are your bosses, too, because they will continue to encourage you no matter what, no matter if it affects them in their jobs. They will continue to encourage you. And if you all spend enough time around this place for long enough, I have a feeling that these kinds of things are going to happen in your life too. So get excited and watch out when it comes. So I want to give thanks to this community, and special shout out to the folks I've been able to work a little more closely with, the Make a Difference Ministry, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. It has been the honor of a lifetime to know you and to love you and to be loved by you. Octavia Butler says, everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you. God is change. And so we are in the midst of this, and I know if any of us are experiencing this in life, any kind of changes in life, know that that's just God showing up. So thank you all. I'll be here for a couple more months, so come see me before I leave, and know we will stay connected. We're living in 2021, y'all. Like, it's easy to stay connected. And thank you so much for this honor to serve.
So as he said, he will be here to the end of June, and he will be out in the lobby later on if you would like to go congratulate him. And just notice that part of us that is sad for ourselves, because we are. It's a healthy sadness to feel sadness when someone we love makes a choice like that, to leave and move into some other area. And at the same time, we can applaud and celebrate the courage and know that as we do that for ourselves. So my final thought I leave us with is from Jack Canfield, who says to us, everything you want is on the other side of fear. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. This week, let's surrender our fear and live more courageously. Please join me in prayer. We go within now and celebrate the opportunity that we have to embrace and consider and open our minds and hearts to courage. To powerful, big courage, to the courage that God is as us. For it is the courage that shines itself through all of creation, and we are that which it is. Therefore, at every moment of our lives, as we step forward into the directions that we desire to live in and move in and be in, that courage is who we are. It's what we are. It's the energy that supports and sustains us. It's the truth of us. And so here in this prayerful moment, I affirm and accept that truth as the energy that goes forth with us in every decision we make this week. That we find ways to activate that courage and to surrender our fear, to see through our fear and walk forward powerfully and magnificently. And in this fearless living, I sense greater upliftment of ourselves and humanity. For as each one of us surrenders fear and chooses to be an example in the world of fearless living, we then shine brightly for others to do the same. For those around us, for our children, for our friends, for our family, all our loved ones, to see and feel the uplifting energy of courage in their lives. And we are so grateful to be that example for ourselves and others. And so with love and joy, we give thanks for this truth and this reality of being, and we release this prayer into the action of that law that makes it so. We let it be, we let it go, and so it is. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Mile High Church podcast. This podcast is made possible by the generous contributions from listeners like you. To make a donation, please visit milehighchurch.org.